Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen here with Alyx King. Today is Wednesday, April the 10th, 2019. It is 8 a.m. in New York. It is 5 a.m. in Los Angeles. It's 1 p.m. in Los Angeles. In London, rather. And Sydney, Australia. I keep messing up Sydney, Australia. I apologize for that. I'm not even going to pretend that I know what time it is in Sydney. So we'll just kind of say, good morning, Sydney. But wherever you are in the world, thank you for joining us for another episode of LOA Today, your daily dose of happy. And I'm happy that we're doing a show on a Wednesday morning where we're both kind of waking ourselves up as we get going.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, you start with whatever you've got and you just go forward from there, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, and you had a good idea. You brought up an idea before the podcast about a topic, one that we really haven't explored. I mean, it's one of those things you kind of go after tangentially sometimes, but no, we haven't really talked about it. So rather than me doing the introduction, and since it's your idea, I'm going to let you introduce the topic. So Alyx King, what's our topic for today?
Okay, so today I decided that we should talk about mental health once again, but from the angle of the people that have to deal with the people going through the mental health.
So, in other words, what it's like being the client and interacting with the people who are trying to help you.
No, I'm talking about the family members of the people or friends and, stuff like that.
So, ripple effect here. We got degrees of separation going on here.
Degrees of separation, yes.
Okay, all right. And tell us a little bit of where this came from. Why this? Why this particular topic? What made you think of it?
My father's been coming up a lot lately, and he's bipolar. So I'd like to talk about, what it was like growing up with him being bipolar.
Okay, and certainly anyone who's grown up with that or lived with bipolar can empathize. But those of us who have not, it's going to be a little bit of an eye opener, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So give us some clues. What's it like growing up with a bipolar father?
I'll tell you this. Is like I tell everybody, it's a lifetime of walking on eggshells.
Yikes.
Because you don't know what's going to trigger that person, what's going to set them off, and you don't know which direction it's going to trigger them to. It could be a manic episode, it could be a depression episode. So you never know which way you're going to go. So you got to walk on eggshells at all times.
It's like going through life without taking a breath.
Yes, it is.
Well, that can't be good for your stress level. I'm sorry, it just can't be.
No, it's not. I was a very stressful 10-year-old.
I can imagine. Yeah. Oh, well, now your father drove a bus, is that right?
Yes.
So he wasn't home all the time. I mean, there were periods of time where he was away from home, wasn't he?
Well, early in my life, he drove for the public transportation system.
Okay.
So he was just working regular
Around
shifts,
town.
and he was home. Yeah, he was home. And then later in life, he bought his own bus and started his own company. So he was doing trips for weekends at a time.
Got it.
So we know of.
Yes.
And
hint, hint, nudge, nudge.
Yeah. So he would be gone for long periods of time. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was those were like the breaks.
Yeah, that would be the breathing spell. That's when you actually get to do your breathing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like, I had fun this weekend. What was different? Oh, Dad wasn't here. Okay.
That sucks. I mean, I know that there's so many people who go through life with either a dysfunctional mother or a dysfunctional father or both, or don't even have a living mother or a living father or both. And so I mean, there's plenty of stuff to go around in that sense. But even so, that's got to be tough to actually have a living father and you can't really relate to him as a father. You have to relate to him almost like he's a patient or something.
Well, he had his moments, like when he would he would have his manic episodes, and he'd do things like, "Oh, I'm so excited! Let's take a trip to Connecticut and go to Red Lobster." And we're
Mm-hmm.
like, "Cheddar Bay biscuits, let's go!" So there were moments like that in my childhood that were fun. So, which
Good.
is why you didn't realize there was a problem, because you had those moments in
Mm,
between.
yeah, and that's confusing. I mean, it's going to be confusing for
Hmm.
anybody, but it's especially going to be confusing for a kid.
Yes, yes. And it wasn't until I was probably 12 or 13 and my father was hospitalized because my mother just couldn't take the fact that he wasn't on his meds anymore. She just couldn't take it. So she had him hospitalized to get him regulated for his medication and everything else. And then I realized, I was like, wait, why are we visiting dad in a hospital? What's going on? I'm so confused.
Mm.
And then that's when we were finally told what was going on, and how he is and why he is the way he is.
So, is it standard protocol within the mental health field to simply volunteer? Okay, we're going to give Alex and her siblings and other family members who need it counseling to help them understand what's going on here, or are you kind of left on your own, or how does that work out?
No, they usually, I mean, nowadays more often they offer family counseling and caregiver counseling.
Hmm.
And so, but I don't, it wasn't like that back in the day. They were just like, if you want to tell your kids, tell your kids, but we're only talking to the patient and whoever brought them here.
Uh-huh. Okay, so you were pretty much left to fend for yourself unless your mom was able to bring it up and talk about it with you.
Hmm. Hmm.
Which I'm guessing that she probably tried to do.
She did in her own way. She tried to explain it, but like, what do you say to a 8 and 7-year old? Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, especially when you don't fully understand it yourself,
Right.
which makes it even harder. Yeah.
Hmm. Exactly.
So how did it, from what you can remember from that age, how did it affect you? What was your experience with it?
I just remember never trying to make my dad angry.
Mm. Well, I don't think anybody
That was
tries
the
to. Well,
majority.
that's not true. There are some kids who actually do try to make their parents angry, but most of it, I don't think you have to have a bipolar parent in order to not want to make your parent angry. That's probably standard for most kids, I would think.
Yeah,
But
but that's where the walking on eggshells comes
yeah.
in handy. So it's like any little thing could tick him off. So
Mm,
it's like, all right, I want a snack, but dinner's almost ready. Do I ask him,
mm.
or is he gonna flip out? And then just like, never mind. I'd rather not even find out. So
And was body language a clue?
I wouldn't say I noticed it back then. I would probably notice it now.
Uh huh. But back then, that was too subtle.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you were basically tossing dice.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Is it
Rolling the
coming?
dice every time.
Is it coming up snake eyes or is it coming up craps? Which is it going to be? It's going to be one or the other,
Yeah,
or something in the middle. You could have a point to try to hit, and then you're still walking on eggshells, wondering what's going to happen with the next throw of the dice.
exactly. It's like anytime you had to ask him a question, like if one of my friends wanted to come over, I'm like, ooh, you ask him. No,
Mm.
no, okay, all right.
So,
Yeah.
how were there differences between the way you experienced this and the way your siblings experienced it that you know of?
I'm sure, because me and my brother were talking one day, not about my father, but something totally different. And he saw it totally different from the way that I saw it. And I was like, "You don't remember this happening?" He's like, "I do, but that's not what happened." I was like, "Oh, come on. You were right there." So I'm pretty sure that we all there's 3 different stories
Mm.
to how things went down.
Which makes it even harder because now you can't even relate to the same situation because you have 3 different experiences of it.
We have 3 different experiences, but it's still a generalized, experience.
So there was some overlap anyway.
Yeah, there's some overlap.
Okay.
Like we all
Okay.
knew what happened, we just internalized it in different ways.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Do you think it affected your relationship with your siblings?
Yes, I do remember there was an incident where me and my father were at our wit's end, and I couldn't take him anymore. So I was like, I'm moving in with my grandmother.
Mm.
And my brother came to me and he said, "Please don't leave. I don't want to be," because it was always me and my brother against, versus my sister. My
Oh.
sister was like, she was the middle child, so she had her own thing going on, and so it was always me and my brother.
Okay.
And so my brother came to me crying, and he was like, "Please don't leave. I can't handle him by myself." And I was just like, "I can't. I gotta go. I can't do it anymore." And I was probably 16 at the time.
And you're older than your brother, younger than your brother?
I'm the oldest.
You're the oldest, okay.
Mm.
Yeah, so, and I can see if he's the youngest, that would make it even harder for him because there is a pecking order when it comes to dealing with a parent.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm oldest too, and I understand that.
Mm-hmm. You're the practice child.
Yes, that's right. That's exactly what you are. We'll just try it out on him and see what happens. Yeah.
Exactly. The youngest doesn't get as much flack as we did.
No. Middle child.
They're like, the other two went through it, and they turned out fine. So, let them do it.
I got to ask you, what's the age difference between you and your sister?
Me and my sister, 2 years.
2 years.
And me and my brother, 3 years.
And my sister and I are a year apart, and my sister went through, now we didn't have bipolar parents or anything like that, but my sister went through all kinds of hell because we were only a year apart. Not so much because my parents were doing anything bad to her or anything like that, but more because I tended to do better academically, and she would get the same teachers as me, and so she'd always, in their eyes, fail to live up to the expectations, and plus she felt like...
that sucks.
It does. It does suck, and it shouldn't have to happen that way. But that's what happens.
You shouldn't be compared to anyone because you are the only you that there is.
Exactly.
And ever will be.
Exactly. Yeah. But that's what people sometimes, very often do, actually, and still do. I think not as much as perhaps in the past, but it still happens.
Yeah.
People still do it. Yeah. And add in the fact that my sister felt like my dad spent more time with me than with her. So she had a number of things bubbling to the surface. You can understand why she went into drama. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's what she decided to go to school for. It's like, oh, yeah, okay, I get it.
Yeah, that's why I gravitated to drama, I'll tell you that.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. So for somebody who's going through a similar situation to what you went through, where they have a family member, particularly a parent, I think it's even more poignant when it's a parent, because the parent has so much influence over you as a kid. If you're giving advice to another kid going through the same thing, or even an adult child going through the same thing, what are some of the things that you can recommend to help lighten the load and relieve the stress?
There is a company called NAMI, and they help with mental health, the families of mental health patients. And I would definitely look into giving them a call, because they have what do you call those groups?
Support group?
Support group. Thank you. Yes, they have support groups that you can go to. They also have counselors that will talk with you about what you're going through, and because even though the person going with the mental health issue needs therapy, you also need therapy in dealing with them and dealing with your own issues about dealing with them.
Yep, that makes sense.
So get help for yourself and for your family member. That's what I would suggest. Because
with all of this, there are going to be a number of different law of attraction, deliberate creation, or non-deliberate creation in this case, instances and events and experiences going on all the time. And if you don't address them, they're going to continue. And they could even get worse, because the vibration keeps getting bigger and bigger over time, right? The more that you focus on something. So it can actually kind of spiral out of control. So this is like really important to address. You can't really turn a blind eye to it, can you?
No, you can't. You
No.
can't. And also, I would also remind them that it's not your fault.
Mm.
Always remember that it's not your fault. This is not your issue, but you are in it. So just remember that.
Now, yesterday, you and me and Bill G. Bill was doing the SRT, trying to help you out with the various phobias and so forth that you deal with, and he pointed out he started talking for a bit about soul contracts. Do you think that soul contracts apply in this situation? Do you think you, for instance, had a soul contract with your father to be here to deal with him while he was doing this thing?
Yep, I definitely do.
Why do you think that?
And because I needed to learn the lesson in how to deal with his situation, because later in life it was going to come up in a relationship, and so that was the lesson that I needed to learn, so I could learn how to handle myself learn that I did not prefer that in a relationship. Although I could handle it because I had dealt with my father, I prefer not to. And that was a lesson I had to learn.
Now, I was kind of joking about this yesterday, but it was sort of a quasi-joke, quasi-serious thing. Why did you have to learn that? I mean, you may not know the answer to this, but to me,
I don't know
that would be like really obvious. Like, no, thank you, I'm not going down that path. But apparently, that was not the case, and I was just wondering, do you have any idea why?
I feel like your soul sees the big picture and how your whole this time around is gonna go. So you say, okay, you're gonna hurt my feelings, you're gonna do this to me, you're gonna do this to me, but it's all gonna make sense in the end. So that's how I feel like soul contracts are drafted.
Well, I'm glad it's going to make sense in the end, because quite honestly, most of the time I'm just confused whenever I talk about them. So this is a good thing to know.
It's like everything I go through that I don't prefer, I always ask myself, okay, what was the lesson here?
That is the key, knowing what you don't prefer, learning what you don't prefer. Sometimes we have to do what Louise calls the 2x4 rule in order to understand what it is that we don't prefer.
Yep.
We try to avoid the 2x4s with spikes. Those are even more painful, but
just a little.
But it is amazing how often we will just keep doing the same things over and over and over again,
and
putting ourselves through the stress, expecting different results. Yeah.
Which is
insane. That's the definition of insanity. That's what that is.
Definition of insanity, yes.
At least according to the 12-step groups, and that's one point I totally agree with them on. That really is insane. And we see it all the time. It's in all aspects of life. It's amazing how often it pops up. So maybe that starts to be the explanation about, why these soul contracts are put together. Maybe not so much because of, well, I'm going to get hurt and I'm going to have this happen to me, I'm going to have that happen to me, but rather this is the kind of situation that can come up. That's the way I look at it, because I don't really like the idea of, well, this is going to happen to me, because that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I suspect if there are soul contract negotiations that go on in the non-physical world, it's probably not, well, I'm going to get hurt on November 27th of 2084. No, it's like, no, that's not the way it's going to be. I think it's much more, well, okay, I'm going to go in this direction where I've got, these kinds of risks going on, and I could see potentially I could perhaps make this kind of mistake or that kind of mistake. So I need people to help me, cover the route and figure out how to deal with it once I get there.
Exactly.
Yeah, that would make more sense to me. I could buy it.
And I also believe in good soul contracts, because I believe, you're like, all right, you know what? This time around, you're going to be my soulmate, but not the only one.
Hence
if
the
that's
bit.
What you choose.
Hence the bit about the 85-year-old sexual deviant that the Bill was talking about yesterday.
Hence the rate in STDs in nursing homes.
When you guys said that, I said, whoa, wait a minute. Am I living like a sheltered life or what? I mean, I had no clue of anything like that.
When you get to the home, you'll find out.
Well, I don't intend to live in a home like that, to be perfectly honest.
Well, we never intend to, but some of us make it there.
But I'm a deliberate creator. So
Touche.
my intention is to live. You know what the ideal life is? The ideal life is where you live abundantly, right to the hilt, until you finally decide that you're done, and then you fall over dead. And it's very simple. Just really clean cut. There's no there's no pain, there's no stress. It's just no muss, no fuss. We're just going to have a great time. We're going to love life. Everything's going to be wonderful, and we're done.
I like it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That to me is the ideal. So, yeah. So if any of our listeners are walking along about, 50, 60, 70 years from now and you see me lying by the side of the road, you'll know what happened.
It's like he lived a full life.
It was done. Yep. I'll carry a little business card in my pocket that says, I'm done.
Walking around with pocket DNRs. Okay.
That's right, yes. Oh, good grief, that's funny. But seriously, let's get back to what the real issue is. Because the real issue is a serious issue. And it's an issue that a lot of people deal with. There are probably, too, and you may know this better than I do, there are probably a lot of people who deal with undiagnosed situations.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And that probably causes even more stressful situations because now there's no help, at least until somebody figures out what's going on.
Yeah, something has to go horribly wrong for someone to get noticed because people go under the radar so often.
Which will eventually happen. I mean, that's one of the beauties of the law of attraction. The negative spirals out of control and then comes to a crash and like, oh, geez, there was something negative going on there. That's how we notice these things. But if you're in the middle of something, you're living with X, whatever X is, some person in your life, and we see posts about this on Facebook in a variety of different forms of, somebody who gives you a hard time. I saw one young woman who had posted about how there was this person from earlier in her life who had abused her and had treated her badly, and now he had physically attacked her, and the police didn't believe her, and all this other stuff, and I mean, aside from the fact that the guy behaved like a criminal, which was certainly an important thing, it sounds like there was something like this going on in the background. I mean, most people, I'm not saying there are no people who decide on becoming the Marquis de Sade, but most people don't make that their first choice. So,
right. I don't think it's like a regular decision that you just make while you're walking down the street.
I'm going to grow up to be an abuser. Hey. No, that's not the way it goes.
Yeah, there's clearly something off.
Yeah.
And undiscovered and even worse, when it is discovered, there are people who choose not to stay on their medication. Or the idea is they take their medication and they feel better, so they don't feel like they need it anymore because they feel like they're fixed. Yeah. And it's like, that's not the case. You feel better because you're on your medication, but they don't see it that way. So they stop taking their medication and then they start acting the way they were before, and it becomes another problem in the family.
So both of those are bad situations. But let's go back to the first one because I can imagine there are probably listeners, people tuning in, people who are listening to the podcast recording who are saying, there are certain people I can think of in my life or a certain person in my life who I've often wondered about them. But I don't feel like I'm in a position where I can do anything about it. I don't feel like it's my place to take them to the hospital or get them treatment or something like that. And yet they're impacting my life. What do I do? What do you say to somebody like that? What do you do when you're in you feel powerless? You feel like it's outside of your control, but you also know it's affecting you. And I think that's probably what happens in the vast majority of cases where people are posting about stuff like that on Facebook. Somebody who's treating them badly or whatever.
Well, I feel like in that case, how you deal with it is up to you. So if you're not close enough to the situation where you feel like you should get the person help, then maybe you're in the type of situation where you need to separate yourself from that person.
Yeah.
Because they're not conducive to your mental health.
That's true. And quite often to your physical health.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
For you to survive, you might just have to let this person go.
That can be hard.
It can be hard, yeah. Probably one of the most difficult situations you'll ever have to deal with. But if it needs to be done, it needs to be done. If there's nothing else you can do, then that's what you got to do.
Did you have to do that with your father?
Definitely. Yep.
What was that like? Talk about that.
It was easy for me because we had fallen out before and not spoken for like 2 years at a time. And this happened twice. But this final time I was going through my mental breakdown and I called him and I let him know and I said, listen, I'm having suicidal thoughts. I'm going into the hospital. I don't feel like myself. And I'm crying on the phone and I'm like, trying to talk to my dad. Like, you're my dad. Like, come on. Yeah. And he's like, well, what am I supposed to do while you're gone? And I was like, I had to stop for a second. Like, dude, this is not about you right now.
Yeah, right. No kidding.
So I was like, all right, that's it. I'm done. And then while I was in the hospital getting help and stuff like that, and talking to therapists, I realized I was like, you know what? He wasn't meant to be a father. He's not able to care for anyone but himself. And that, unfortunately, can be a characteristic of bipolar. So he can't handle more than himself. So.
And it sounds like he even has trouble handling himself.
Yeah, definitely.
Right?
Definitely.
I mean, that's a full-time job and he's not getting it done.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's like 2 jobs because you have 2 personalities fighting for each other.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's almost schizophrenic at that point. Not quite, but almost.
I do have another family member going through schizophrenia, and that type of family it's rough. Like, it's trying to get him to take his medications, but he's of age, so he can refuse the medication.
Yeah.
And his family's like, well, what can we do? And he's like, well, I don't have to live here. So now he's running around homeless and no one can do anything about it because he's over 21. So what can you do?
Yeah.
So that's hard to go through by itself.
Yeah.
Schizophrenia is a whole nother ball of wax.
It really is. I mean, there are advantages to being married to a psychotherapist, which I am. There are also there's the plus side, there's the minus side. And the minus side is learning from her what it is like. I mean, she did not actively treat schizophrenics, but she knew other clinicians who did, and she had she heard the stories and so forth. And oh my God, the things that people go through who are suffering from that situation. Oh. And it's both the people who have the schizophrenia and the people around them. It's rough on everybody involved.
Yes.
It's one of those times where I think about what we learn as deliberate creators and as aspiring deliberate creators. And we get teachers like Abraham telling us that our thoughts create our health and our illness. And I believe it's true. And they give us tools and practices to use to, shift our thoughts around, pivot from the bad feeling to the good feeling, all that kind of stuff. And it's all very good. And yet even they acknowledge there are times where the gap between the negative place you might be in and the positive place you want to get to are so far apart that you can't get there in one leap. You have to kind of take it one rung of the ladder at a time.
Baby steps, yeah.
Those little baby steps, yeah, and which I think is the right thing to do and to say, to advocate that. But when I look at it practically, from the point of view of being either somebody who has a severe mental illness like that or someone who's dealing with it, God, that must seem overwhelming. Like, I'll never get there. How could I possibly get there?
It gives you a feeling of hopelessness.
And that's probably the number one thing that really needs to be overcome, is that feeling of hopelessness.
Yes. Because once you don't feel like you're hopeless or like you're a burden, then you start to build on that and you start to feel like, okay, I can take this one day at a time and I can get better and I can accomplish goals, and as little as they are, as big as they are, I can do things. But you got to get past those 2 major hurdles, the hopelessness and feeling like you're a burden on your family or friends or loved ones.
Which means to me that the people who are dealing with the most difficult stuff, the schizophrenia, the bipolar, the severe mental illnesses and so forth, have a lot to teach to the rest of us. Because we all have situations where we feel hopeless, but they feel extremely hopeless. So anything that someone who's going through that can tell the rest of us about, well, here are some ideas about how to get hope back. That's pretty big time advice right there. Mm-hmm. Now you've been
totally agree.
You've been dealing with your own stuff. I mean, you've itemized the list before, and I think it's like anxiety and agoraphobia, and you were diagnosed bipolar, but now you're pointing out to me before the show that, well, that was because your dad was bipolar, and so now you're saying to your psychiatrist, wait a minute, hold on. Don't give me diseases I don't need.
Right. Let's not add to the list.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I was diagnosed with bipolar at the first time I got diagnosed with anything. They were like, oh, your dad's bipolar? Okay, so it must be bipolar. Throw these meds at her. She'll be fine. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And after a couple of years and getting tested and all this stuff, that's when they realized it's not bipolar. She has Asperger's. And how those two intertwine, I don't know, but that's what happened.
I have no clue.
I mean, I have Asperger's on top of like 4 or 5 other different mental illnesses. So it's a fun bag.
It's like Sean Aker says, he meant this in a humorous way, and it is humorous when you look at it from the abstract point of view. He says, if you go into a therapist, we don't want you to come out with one mental illness. We want you to have 10, so you keep coming back over and over again and pay for the house in Bermuda,
Yeah, got to keep the business going.
Which is a sad truth. That is what happens very often in the mental health field. It's one of those. There are a lot of fields where ethics play an important role. To me, that's one of the biggest ones because it's so easy to cross that line if you're a provider.
Yeah,
it's so easy. I mean, interestingly enough, though, this is something I picked up talking to Joel Elston, who's told a lot of stories on the show about psychiatrists that he's met and people who are in the field who are regularly working with people who have severe situations. And I remember one time he was telling me a tale of 2 psychiatrists. One psychiatrist was one who made it his mission in life to see as many patients as possible in a day. And he wasn't spending time with any of them. He was a pill dispenser. Yeah. And he and in his private conversations away from his practice, he would brag about how much money he was making and how successful his practice was because he was just dishing meds. On the other hand, the other psychiatrist Joel was talking about was a good friend of his who wouldn't do that on his worst day, and even more importantly, is dedicated to getting people out of their mental difficulties as fast as possible.
Yes.
What's sometimes called the grow or go syndrome. Right?
Yeah.
And boy, oh boy, they're almost diametrically opposite.
They are, yeah.
So now I got to ask you, you only have the limited experience of the various caregivers and therapists and psychiatrists that you've dealt with, but what's your sense?
Yeah.
Are there more of type A or of type B?
Let me tell you, on the Cape, it is not limited. Because
they come
and go so fast.
Oh.
They come and go so fast. I have had, in the last 11 years of dealing with these issues, I have had over 10 clinicians, maybe?
Wow.
Maybe more.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's at least one clinician a year. Yeah.
That's serious turnover right there.
Yeah. And that's counting you have to have a psychiatrist or a nurse practitioner and a therapist.
Right.
With the insurance I have, you cannot get medication without seeing someone to make sure that you're taking it and taking it properly. And getting talk therapy and help along with it.
Which means that you're basically averaging out, and this is like a broad mathematical application, you're averaging out about one psychiatrist every 2 years and one therapist every 2 years.
Yep.
Well, that's not very good continuity.
It's not, but it takes. I've gone from the psychiatrist I have now is amazing. Like he knows I'm in between therapists, so he's like, you can call me any time of day. We can talk about whatever, anything you need.
Oh.
And that's not his job. It's not his job to talk to me. It's his job to give me my medication.
Yeah.
But he takes the time out to make sure I'm okay. Whereas I had another one who literally, and this pissed me off in the worst way. I can laugh about it now, but it melted my butter so bad.
Mm-hmm.
They told me, I told them, I was like, I'm really struggling with my insomnia. I need something to help me sleep. They were like, well, have you tried warm milk? I was like, she can't be serious right now. Then she said, well, what about Benadryl?
Benadryl?
It doesn't work. Benadryl. I was like,
wait a minute.
It doesn't work.
Benadryl? Benadryl's an antihistamine.
Yes.
What does that have to do with sleep?
Because a lot of psychiatrists like to take the side effects of medication and use them to help with your symptoms. So Benadryl having that drowsy side effect, they will prescribe it as a sleep aid.
You've got to be kidding.
I swear.
I mean, it's not even a good sedative. It really isn't. It does have a slight side effect, but it's not. Oh, gee.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. I've been on both sides. I know what Joel's talking about. I've seen it both ways. But yeah, no, I literally was like, I need to get this lady fired because at this point, I'm a better therapist I'm a better clinician than she is.
Yeah.
Because and I'm on the phone with everyone I know, and I was like, she told me to drink warm milk. But she was like dead serious. Oh, and then the third thing
there's nothing wrong with drinking warm milk. I mean, that's fine, but you can't use that as the definitive cure, especially if it's not working.
That's what I'm saying. But the third thing that she told me to do was, she said, well, have you tried praying about it?
Okay, well,
and
that's okay, yeah. Well, that's kind of along the lines, sort of being a deliberate creator. So I can kind of appreciate that.
In her position, it's church and state. You're not supposed to be.
You got to separate them. Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, you're not supposed to be preaching religion while I'm asking you for help for sleep. Mm-hmm. Like, really? I was like, all right, I'm going to go home and pray about my warm milk. I got to go. And I walked out.
I'm going to pray about my warm milk. I love that. That is an interesting point, though. The separation that you talk about there. Yeah. Because we do have the expectation, societally, we have that kind of expectation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And there are many of us, myself included, who think that we rely too heavily on medication. And so we kind of want our doctors to start opening up to other possibilities. But you just described how that can actually go further than what you really want as the client. And that's an interesting balance right there. That's a tough balance.
Well, that depends on who you're going to. If you're into, like, you know, I'm not going to say woo-woo because that's not how I feel about it, but like if you're into crystals, if you're into, it starts with a W.
Oh, something with a W?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm drawing a blank.
Me too. Okay. Well, if you're into crystals, if you're into that type of stuff, then you go to a place that specializes in that, and that's the type of therapist you see, and that because that's what you're asking for. You don't start pushing your agenda on me. That's where I draw the line, and that's where I have the problem. So she didn't even ask me if I was religious. She just said, "Did you pray about it?"
So a more appropriate question from your perspective would have been, do you pursue any alternatives?
Yes, that would have been a way more appropriate question.
Okay. And I can understand why a clinician might get tripped up on that, because clinicians are taught the scientific method, which is you get very specific. You specifically for this, specifically for that. You don't go general.
Yeah.
Going general is generally considered taboo. Although, fortunately, not all physicians adopt that viewpoint, and they end up getting information quicker as a result. But they're trained to look at very micro level detail. So I can see
wellness.
where they would.
That was the W word.
Oh, wellness person. Yes, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, all right. You brought it up, so I'm going to bring it up too. Because this is my stuff, okay? I am convinced that we as a society are far too focused on sickness.
Okay.
And we need to focus far more on health. I mean, you talked about mental health. I take it more broadly. I think it's all health is mental health. I think that the topic of being healthy is about having the mental framework so that you're healthy at all times, because I buy into the idea that we make ourselves sick with our thoughts. I really think that's true. And I think it's true 100% of the time. So starting from that perspective, first of all, do you think that there is truth to that? Do you think it's accurate that our thoughts create our illnesses? Yes. Okay. So how do we get from A to B? Right now, we are in a society that is heavily dependent on sickness care. They call it health care, but it's always about sickness. Right?
Health care.
Yeah, you don't go into a hospital in order to get a health exam. You go into a hospital because you're sick.
Right.
Well,
no, you get your physical every year to make sure that you're healthy.
Even they're looking for sickness, though. They don't test. There are no tests for health.
Well, it's all in how you think about it. Because I think about it as, what am I maintaining my healthiness?
Okay, well that's good. That's definitely a healthy frame of mind. I still see it as what are the practitioners focusing on? Because they're the ones who are spending the large chunks of time every day on it. So they're the ones generating the biggest vibration from an LOA perspective. Yeah. Not that clients don't. Patients do too, don't get me wrong, but it's both.
Yeah.
It's a combination. So I'm going to ask you, how do you get there? How do you make the shift though? How does society shift?
I think it's all in how we think of things and how we word things. I learned from and this is another reason why I love the show so much. One of the actors from Supernatural had depression for a really long time and had suicidal ideations, and he talked about it openly, and he started a charity called, oh my gosh, I'm going to forget. It's not I am enough. That's his saying. That's the slogan. The slogan is I am enough, and the charity is, I forget. But anyway, so I donate to that charity because I feel that on a certain level. Like, I totally agree with it. And I was watching a Comic-Con one day, and they were doing a panel, and a lot of people that go there also deal with mental health. And he is like, so they're like, hi, I have really bad anxiety, but I wanted to say hi to you, and da 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 da. And one person got up and said, she worded it in a very negative way. I don't remember how she said it, but she worded, she said she suffers from depression and anxiety. And he corrected her, and he said, no, you deal with mental health. That's how you have to, and he's good. Like, I want you to say it after me. And from that point on, I was like, oh my God, that's like a totally different way to think about it. And it is better, and it does make you feel better. It's like, I don't suffer from these things. I deal with mental health issues. And so, like I said, I think it's all in how you word things, because you speak things into existence. So it's also in how you think about it yourself. So how you make yourself feel.
I'm going to go negative for just a moment. I'm going to go.
Ooh, okay.
I'm going to go over to the side of the doubters, who doubt this whole LOA thing, the woo-woo stuff that we talk about all the time, right? And they're saying, "Well, Alyx, you still have all these phobias. It's not really helping you. You haven't cured yourself of all this by focusing on positive. It doesn't do you any good." What do you say to them?
I say it takes baby steps, and Rome wasn't built in a day.
So have you made progress?
I've made a lot of progress. In the beginning, I was at the point where I had built myself a fort in my room and wouldn't come out of it.
You built
Now
a fort?
Built a fort.
What'd you build it out of? I'm curious.
Blankets and chairs.
Blankets and chairs. Okay, so nobody could get in without tripping over a chair or a blanket.
And nope, there was no. I had built a fort and I would not come out of it, and no one could get me out of it. I came out of it to pee and eat, and that was it. And now I'm at the point where, I have my service dog, so, I will go out from time to time, and I went to my brother from another mother. I went to his wedding last year. So I've come a long way.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That, I think, is key right there.
Yeah.
For anybody who's dealing with, whether they know that they're dealing with a diagnosed situation or not, is knowing that when you take the baby steps, you actually do get better.
Yep.
That's big.
Because you got to build upon each step.
Yeah. And I think there's also a little bit of I guess I call it a lesson that's in there, which is improvement is health. Health is not a final destination. It's not like unhealthy, healthy. It's healthier, healthy.
I like it.
Yeah. Because otherwise, you can get defeated really easily. That's what we were talking about earlier, about somebody who's in that real depths of depression. They can't see any hope of getting there. Even the idea of baby steps seems overwhelming. It's like, because I could take baby steps all I want to. I'm not going to crawl out of this. This is like far more than baby steps can handle. That's the feeling.
That's the feeling. That is the feeling. But I will say, from where I was in the beginning and to where I am now, I no longer deal with depression,
which is great. Were you diagnosed with depression, or was that just something you experienced?
No, I was diagnosed. Everything I say, I'm diagnosed with. I don't assume I have anything.
Okay, so you were actually diagnosed with depression, and you actually beat depression.
Yeah.
You beat it with a stick. No, you didn't do that. I know. But you overcame it. That's good. So
I overcame it, yeah.
So now, if we wanted to turn that into the positive phrase, what did you replace depression with? What became the new state of mind?
I remember, again, Jared Padalecki said that there's only two ways to deal with it. You either deal with it or you die. So basically he was saying you either deal with what you have or you kill yourself. So those are your two options. Once you decide you don't want to do one, you're going to do the other. So I decided I didn't want to kill myself. And from that, I built upon that and decided I'm going to deal with it.
So I think we can honestly say then that you left depression in favor of life.
Yes.
That's really the positive phrasing right there. You chose life.
Yeah, I chose life.
Okay. That's good. Hooray. I'm glad of that.
Thank you.
We wouldn't be doing a show if you hadn't chosen life. That's really good.
That's true. That's true.
What other are there others that you have overcome and moved away from the diagnosis, and the diagnosis no longer applies?
Nope. Everything else still applies.
Everything still applies. Okay. So there's a lot more progress to be made, but you've proven
a lot more.
You've proven that progress can be made. You've experienced it. What does that experience do for you?
I know I'm supposed to feel proud.
There's no supposed to. It's what you feel. You feel what you feel. It doesn't. It's not up to somebody else.
Well, that's what the therapists are telling me. Like, aren't you proud that you did this? And aren't you proud that you did that? And I'm like, no, I just feel like it just needed to be done. So I did it. Like, I don't know.
See, I'm not going to put a word on you, but I am going
Yeah.
to put a word on you because
Okay.
I want to go in a different direction. If I was going to say that you had to pick a word, I wouldn't have said proud. I would have said relieved.
hmm Okay. I can take relief.
Because relief actually is what you were looking for. You wanted relief from that depression,
Yeah,
and you got it.
definitely.
Hooray! You got the relief. Now,
So true.
I can't honestly say that was original. That I get that from Abraham. That's the Abraham
Yeah.
viewpoint. That whenever we're trying to move away from something we don't like, what we want is relief from that thing. We want to feel relieved of the burden of whatever that thing is that we definitely
Yes.
do not prefer, and we're 100% certain we do not prefer it. We want the relief. We want to feel better.
Yes.
That's really what it's all about, I think, is finding that relief, and you find it. So that's really good.
Yes.
Which means you can find relief from the other stuff too.
Yep.
That's
It's just a matter of time.
That's the takeaway. I think.
Yep.
Is, okay, I did it with air. Well, I can do it elsewhere too. Steve Rawls tuned in listening to us. He says, "Celebrate the shit out of it." That's really big, Alex.
Hi, Steve.
Can always count on Steve to just ruin the rating of the show just by bringing in the swear words. I love it. Oh, that's great. I can always count on Steve to give me a laugh. That's one of the things I love about it. So,
Good old
okay.
Steve.
Oh, he's fabulous. So, okay. So we've been talking about the topic that you brought up. Have we talked about the areas that you wanted to talk about, or is there anything that we've overlooked at this point? Because I want to make sure we're really covering the topic the way you thought about it.
I'm really sitting here trying to remember the name of Jared's charity. Oh my God. I need to Google it, but my phone is in use right now.
Yes, this is true. Well,
oh my God, I can't believe it slips my mind because I live for it. Like, wow. I'm terrible. I'm a terrible fan.
No. You're a good fan. Got to turn that around. Got to pivot to it. So, all right, give me his name. I'll look it up for you because I can look it up on a computer here.
I don't know if you can spell it. It's Jared Padalecki.
I don't have to spell it accurately. That's one of the nice things about Google.
Google will spell it.
Google will spell it, and it's his charity.
Yep.
Let's see what he's got. The Jared Foundation?
Nope, not that one.
Let's see. I definitely gave a name that confused Google. Let's put in a couple more letters. Maybe it'll understand it better. Padalecki, charity, supernatural, always keep fighting campaign.
Yes, the Always Keep Fighting, AKF, Always Keep Fighting.
There it is.
Oh my God, that would have bothered me all day. One of those things that would have interrupted my nap and I wouldn't have been able to sleep.
Well, that's really critical because sleep is one of your issues. So we got to make sure that we take those
exactly.
sleep reducers out of the way.
I don't like having anything hanging over my head before I go to sleep because it lingers.
Yeah, that's important. So, since that's the last thing that was left to talk about, where this topic is concerned, from your perspective, anyway, tell us more about his charity. Tell us what you love about it. Tell us what's so cool.
Well, it started off as him talking about his mental awareness and what he was going through, and how even though he, you would think he would be the happiest person on the earth because he makes so much money shooting this show and doing a show that he loves so much with a great crew and close family and stuff like that. And he met his wife on the show and they got great kids. He still suffers from depression. So that was his thing, is like, it doesn't matter where you are in life or who you are, you can still deal with different mental issues. So that was the beginning of it. And then it made Supernatural like this Supernatural went into mental awareness like overload. So now it has like 4 or 5 different charities that they do.
Oh, wow.
So they do like fun runs. They're doing the Boston Marathon in honor of their charity, and they also started and I wanted to be a part of this, but I couldn't afford to do it. This suicide hotline for Supernatural fans, and you can volunteer to do it for a year. But you have to be trained in how to help someone who's contemplating suicide. Obviously, you can't just jump on the phone and go, yeah, but Supernatural's on, so everything's fine.
That's probably not your best approach, no.
Especially now with the show being canceled, I'm sure the phone lines are going crazy. But so they started this suicide hotline, but the thing is you have to pay $250 to be trained in first aid and all that stuff.
Right.
And unfortunately, I can't afford that, but I still wanted to give back in some way. So I do buy the T-shirts, the Always Keep Fighting T-shirts. I have like 5 of those, and yeah, so that's another reason that I love the show is the characters and what they stand for and everything else.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate. This is the last question probably for the show, but I'm going to play devil's advocate for a minute. Always keep fighting. Fighting suggests to me resisting. So what do you think about that? The name of his campaign is Always Keep Fighting, and it makes me think, well, then it's going to be an ongoing fight.
Well, it's always keep fighting for life.
Well, fighting is fighting, though. I'm playing devil's advocate here, but fighting is fighting.
Yeah, you are. It's just when you decide to choose life as opposed to going out suicide wise, just always keep fighting.
Yeah, I think I like the idea of choosing life. I think that's the good one. So I would if we're my charity, I'd call it Always Choose Life.
I think there's one already out there called that, and that's probably why they didn't do that.
Well, that could be. Yeah, that's true. You need to have
that. Just sounds like the obvious choice.
Isn't that interesting though? The obvious choice is the one we usually do skip.
But then it's like always keep fighting. Like it encompasses every type of mental illness. It's not just suicide by itself. So I feel like maybe that's why he chose it.
It could be. I just have this feeling that there's so many
or
things
maybe
that we fight.
It's something...
We fight cancer. We fight mental illness. We fight all these different diseases. And I keep asking myself, is that perpetuating the disease? Because we're fighting.
Nah, I don't think so.
You don't think so? All right. Well, we'll leave it at that. Because we're out of time anyway. So, and I got to get the announcements in. Because the announcements are always important. That's where we say, if you're not yet a subscriber, please become a subscriber to the show. And it's really easy to do. You just go to the homepage of our website, loatoday.net. And right at the top of the page, you'll see this great big icon that's labeled for your particular kind of device. You click it, it walks you through, and bang, just like that, you are a subscriber. And then, of course, after you've been listening to the episodes and you're liking what you're hearing, share it on social media. Let people know so that other people can get their daily dose of happy. And I know I asked you yesterday, Alex, but you never know. Things might have changed in 12 hours. So is there anything coming up on spoiler alert that people might want to know about?
No, nothing new. Nothing has happened in the last 24 hours. So
Supernatural hasn't been. They haven't decided that they're going to add an extra season or something like that. So we haven't had that news.
You know what? A lot of people are signing petitions and trying to get it back, but it's like the actors have been doing this for 15 years. Let them have their break.
Yeah, it's a long, long time.
Let them be with their family. And I've just come to the conclusion. I was like, I guess they can be with their families and watch their kids grow up. Whatever.
It's probably also, I mean, I know this is true for most series that go on for a long, long time. After a while, you start feeling like you're scraping the bottom of the barrel trying to find ideas to keep the series going. That's
another thing that they said. Yeah. That they're running low on ideas.
Yeah.
But how could you? You can go so many ways. It's Supernatural. There's no end.
Plus, also, sometimes you just need to move on. I mean, maybe they're done. Maybe they themselves have gotten all they need to get out of being the supernatural people. They needed to go do something else. That's part of life.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I don't know if any of that really helps the supernatural fans, but I thought I'd mention it anyway. So thank you.
Every little bit helps at this point.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing up the topic. That was a good one because we really haven't looked very much in the past at how it affects other people in the lives of people who are dealing with mental illness. So, yeah, good one. Thank you for bringing that up. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Yep. Thank you to our live stream listeners. Thank you to the podcast listeners as well. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.